Hello chess lovers, I have a fantastic game for you played by band Larsen against Tigran Petrosian. The game was played in 1966 in Santa Monica. Let's see how the game went on. Larsen started with e4, c5 by Petrosian, knight f3, knight c6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, g6, bishop e3, bishop g7, c4, knight f6, knight c3 and knight g4. Black is giving up the knight on g4 and instead is capturing on d4. Queen retreats back to d1 square, knight e6, queen d2, d6, bishop e2, bishop d7. We see castling by both sides, rook a d1, bishop c6, knight d5 and a dubious decision by Petrosian, rook e8. A better move was knight c5. If queen c2, then black can capture on e4. If queen takes e4, then e6, winning back the knight, and this is equal. But instead, after knight d5, we see rook e8, and now comes f4. Larsen is starting an attack on the king side. Knight c7, according to Petrosian, he had planned to play knight c5, but later rejected it, thinking that after e5, knight d7, white can play knight b4 and this can be very unpleasant for him. By the way, black can't capture on e5 because after knight takes c6, black is losing a piece. Let's go back. After f4, we see knight c7, f5, knight a6 and bishop g4. According to Larsen, this was a bad move. A better move was playing b4, threatening b5. If knight b8, planning to bring the knight to e5 square, then b5, and after bishop d7, the bishop is blocking the knight and black's position is very unpleasant. White can proceed with the attack. But instead, after knight a6, Larsen played bishop g4. Of course, later in the tournament book he wrote, "My sense of self-criticism may not be sufficiently developed, but I certainly don't regret the mistake I made on move 17. Of course, if it weren't this move, we would have never seen the ending brilliant combination. Black played knight c5, attacking the pawn on e4. F takes g6, h takes g6 and queen f2, attacking the pawn on f7 with later intentions of bringing queen to h4 square. Rook f8, and now if you have a look at the position, bishop takes c5 looks very tempting. If d takes c5, then knight f6 check. Looks like white is winning the queen, but black has a compensation. Believe it or not, but this is equal. Right now black is threatening bishop d4. If a move like king h1, then black can bring the rook to d4 square, then double it, and this is an equal game. But instead, after rook f8, Larsen played e5, sacrificing the pawn and luring away this bishop from the shelter. Bishop takes e5, queen h4, bishop takes d5, rook takes d5, knight e6, rook f3, planning to bring the rook to h3 square, bishop f6, queen h6, bishop g7, and now you can pause the video and try to find Larsen's next move. Ready? Larsen played queen takes g6, sacrificing the queen. Petrosian didn't accept the sacrifice and played knight f4. But what will happen if black captures on g6? Then after f takes g6, white can play bishop takes e6 check. By the way, this variation was played in a movie, Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows, where Sherlock Holmes won the game against Professor Moriarty. If rook f7, then bishop takes f7 check. If king h8, then rook h3 check, bishop h6, bishop takes h6. And if queen b6, then white can either play king h1 or c5 is stronger. If queen takes b2, then bishop f8 checkmate. Look at this amazing checkmate. Or after bishop takes f7 check, if king f8, then bishop takes g6 discovered check, bishop f6, rook h5, threatening rook h8 check. If queen c7, then white can even capture on f6. If e takes f6, then rook h8 check, king e7, rook h7 check, winning back the queen, and this is a one endgame for white. There is no way to stop this pawn. Let's go back. After queen takes g6, we see knight f4. Here comes rook takes f4, and only now Petrosian captures on g6. Bishop e6 check, rook f7. Rook takes f7. King h8. Avoiding any possible discovered checks. Rook g5. A desperate move by Petrosian, b5. But here comes rook g3 and Petrosian resigned. According to the engine, the best continuation is giving up the queen, but white has an extra piece and it's over. White can easily win the game. Or after rook g3, just a random move. If a move like queen a5, then rook h3 check followed by rook f4 checkmate. What a beautiful queen sacrifice by Bernd Larsen. Your comments and questions please. What do you think about this amazing game?